In Seth Grahame-Smith's Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, which was published by Grand Central Publishing in 2010, the narrative unfolds across Abraham Lincoln's lifetime. The story is narrated by an individual with access to Lincoln's secret diary, revealing the 16th president's clandestine role as a vampire slayer during a period when vampires were discreetly amassing political influence and exploiting slaves for deadly purposes. While maintaining the historical framework of Lincoln's life, the novel incorporates fictional elements involving vampires. The tale begins in September 1818, with the death of Lincoln's beloved mother at the age of 34. Following her death, Lincoln's father, Thomas, remarries. In a drunken revelation, Thomas discloses that a vampire named Jack Bartz killed Nancy due to an outstanding debt. Jack administered a lethal dose of vampire blood, ensuring her demise without transforming her into a vampire. Thomas also confesses that vampires were responsible for the death of Lincoln's grandfather, refuting the belief that Native Americans were to blame. Deeply affected, Lincoln pledges to eradicate every vampire in America. After a year of rigorous training, Lincoln lures Jack to the family farm, ostensibly to settle Thomas's debt, and successfully stakes and kills the vampire. Several years later, Lincoln pursues an elderly female vampire, only to find himself ill-prepared and severely wounded. To his surprise, he wakes up to discover that Henry Sturgis, a vampire, has saved him. Henry challenges Lincoln's perception of all vampires as evil, recounting his own tragic history as an original settler at Roanoke. Henry survived an onslaught orchestrated by a vampire that wiped out everyone else, and the vampire subsequently turned him into one of their kind. Under Henry's mentorship, Lincoln undergoes rigorous training to enhance his skills as a vampire slayer. After Lincoln embarks on his own, Henry continues to assist by providing names and locations of vampires marked for elimination. Over the course of 3 years, Lincoln successfully hunts down and kills 15 vampires. During his flatboat job, Lincoln arrives in New Orleans, where he encounters a vampire in a cemetery. This pursuit introduces him to the renowned writer Edgar Allan Poe, who shares Lincoln's anti-vampire sentiments. Despite their differing perspectives on vampires, the two form a friendship. Witnessing a vampire purchasing slaves for sustenance at an auction prompts Lincoln to take a stand against slavery. In 1831, at 22 years old, Lincoln works at a store in New Salem, forging friendships, including one with Jack, whom he involves in vampire hunting. Armed with his vampire-killing axe and a new weapon called Martyr, a torch-like device, Lincoln wins a seat in the Illinois state legislature in 1834. His romantic involvement with Anne Rutledge is cut short when her vampire fiancé, John McNamara, poisons her. Rejecting Henry's offer to turn Anne into a vampire, Lincoln and Henry join forces to eliminate McNamara. Transitioning to a legal career, Lincoln marries Mary Todd, despite her father's vampire connections. The couple welcomes a son, Robert, leading Lincoln to temporarily retire from vampire hunting. In 1846, he runs for Congress and moves to Washington after securing victory. Discovering Southern politicians collaborating with vampires, the family returns to Illinois in 1849 and welcomes a new child, Edward, who tragically dies a year later. Between 1852 and 1857, Lincoln and Mary expand their family, having 2 more sons. Lincoln actively opposes Stephen A. Douglas's Kansas-Nebraska Act, experiences a congressional election loss, and witnesses the controversial Dred Scott decision by the Supreme Court. Upon receiving a letter from Henry, the Lincolns journey to New York City, where Lincoln is abducted by vampires. In a meeting with Henry and other pro-human vampires, it's revealed that Lincoln and Henry's Slayer and vampire partnership is part of the Union's plan to eliminate evil vampires, advocating for war against humans. The Union, consisting of benevolent vampires, is preparing for the impending conflict. In 1858, Lincoln engages in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, but loses the Senate election. Meanwhile, Union vampires secretly support Lincoln's presidential candidacy and facilitate the Underground Railroad. Lincoln is tasked with killing Jefferson Davis, a vampire, but falls into a trap. Davis believes vampires should rule over humans, and Lincoln argues that unchecked, they will endanger both humans and slaves. Henry intervenes, saving Lincoln and his allies, but Davis escapes. The Union vampires manipulate the presidential election, ensuring Lincoln's victory. The South secedes, elects Davis as the Confederate president, and initiates the Civil War by firing on Fort Sumter. Lincoln's son Willie falls victim to a vampire fool's dose, leading Lincoln to express his aversion to vampires. A dream depicting slaves devoured by vampires prompts Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862, granting freedom to slaves from seceded states. The Civil War concludes in April 1865, with General Lee's surrender. Henry informs Lincoln that evil vampires are leaving the country. Lincoln's assassination, mirroring historical events, occurs at the hands of John Wilkes Booth, revealed to be a vampire. After fleeing the theater, Booth is cornered by Union soldiers and killed by Henry. Lincoln, forewarned in his dreams, dies on April 15th. Henry turns him into a vampire on the night of his funeral, leading to a century-long partnership combating adversaries like the KKK and the Nazis. Together, they witness pivotal moments, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. Death remains a prevailing theme in Lincoln's life, marked by the losses of his mother, first love, and 2 children. Despite these tragedies, Lincoln rejects Henry's offer to turn his loved ones into vampires, highlighting the ironic twist of a man eager for death being condemned to eternal life through vampirism.